When that attack happened in Brussels, we all were talking in each other in social media, and we were all feel pain. But I'm just asking anybody hear me here, if something happened in Kabul, you feel the same? If you cut some part of your, hand, for example, if there is no neuron there, right, you cannot feel it, and then all the blood will go out, right?
Understood.
And then probably you die even for it. Then you have pain, and then neurons transport this pain, and then you decide what to do. We have to transfer this pain to all people. We have to. Otherwise, nobody can decide what to do. I'm Massoud Hossaini, and I take picture in Afghanistan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Realities Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Fonseca Rendeiro, and this is the program where we listen to people about their personal missions. And many of you have been with me for many years via Citizen Reporter, now here on a new podcast. And welcome to the many new listeners that I've perhaps met in person over the last few weeks, or perhaps you've started listening, though we haven't met. Today, finally, we have the podcast with Massoud Hossaini. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer based in Afghanistan. He and I met in 2010 in Kabul and have met many times since then. Many of those times, we record a conversation, and it was my great pleasure that just a few weeks ago, Massoud Hossaini was here in Amsterdam, actually in The Hague, to be more specific. And the following is a conversation we recorded together, an update, if you will, to the many stories we've been discussing over the years. Take a listen. Let's go back to my conversation with Massoud Hossaini. Here with an old friend of our program and a voice that you've heard a few times over the years. And I'm talking about Massoud Hossaini. Say hello, Massoud.
Hello to everyone.
So it's nice to have you back. I think the first podcast we did, we were in Kabul, sitting on a rooftop. Right. Whatever happened to the Kabul Inn? Anyway, then some years later, you've been in Amsterdam a few times on different projects, World Press, and there have been, and so on this project, you're here for not photos or not directly photos, a film in particular. Right. And I definitely want to talk about that. I know you've been talking about it a lot. Right. But one of the other reasons that I wanted to have you back on the podcast and just to sit down and get to talk to you, two reasons. One, I love the fact that as years go on, we can talk and compare what we thought then, what we didn't know, what we've learned. And the other is indeed to sort of look around and look at what's changing, if anything, and in what direction. Right. I think we do that a lot when we talk anyway. Right. So first of all, how's life especially since the Pulitzer? We talked a lot about that back then. I know that's a lot of time to talk about, but how are you?
Good. I'm doing my job and my life in Kabul. And since the Pulitzer, the last time that we talked about prizes and everything that we talked in your house, I for sure I went back to Kabul, and the life was so busy as always, which is in Kabul. And the situation is really, really different right now till the last time that we talked. We have a lot of, up and down in Afghan politics, Afghan life, economy, security, and a lot of other things which is really important for Afghan society. So now that I'm sitting here, Afghanistan also is passing one of the really difficult time in probably in all his history in these 14 years. And there are no a lot of hope between the youth and between the women and between the educated people. So that's why that most of them are run away from the country, and they go and immigrate to other country like European country, one of them like Netherlands. And that's really painful because from the group that I was belonged to, like a group of friends that we did a lot of, great job, volunteerism in Afghanistan, help poor people, help like in any like field, those who had who needed the law in law protection, whatever that in court and everything. From that group that we were 22, right? We are only 3 now in the country. The rest all are fled and they all run away from the country, which is really sad actually. When I saw, those days, we had a lot of, great idea to help Afghanistan and a lot of idea to solve the problem of our, people. But now all is really, down, and most of those friends of mine, the educated friends, are already left. And this is gonna be continue because one of the news that we heard, and it was a lot affected in Afghanistan, was that CIA chief said that the 2016 the Afghanistan government, the legal Afghanistan government, will collapse. And that's something that scared a lot of people.
Yeah, I think if people listen back to our conversations as early as 2010, but even later when you were in Amsterdam, all those years later, it was always this question of, at that time, what happens security-wise if the international forces, when the international forces leave. So it was a bit the question, what happens once they leave? And with the question of what happens was sort of the underlying, does life get so impossible? Or yes, even this thing of, does a government collapse? But here we are, the government hasn't collapsed.
Right.
But?
Well, whatever we had about the elections and about the, civil society movement that we started really, really good. Now, all of them are under questions, right? The parliament is illegal now because they their legal time of parliament is finished like 1 year ago, right? And then also the presidential election was on fraud. A lot of fraud happened, and nobody knows exactly who won, Abdullah or President Ghani, who's now president. And it was a kind of agreement between these two, which they shared the power. It means that the vote of people was not important at all. So if we didn't go to, voting centers and we didn't vote, they could do the same thing right now, right? And now nobody knows that what happened to the vote of people and what happened of all those people who died in the election day in the violence that Taliban and other insurgents group did against the people to not voting, right? And all of these problems, and also, I remember that last time I was talking about this, that if the troops leave, we will not have a really good situation security-wise and economic-wise. And yes, now it happened. There are a lot of jobless. All, construction projects are down. everybody tried to take their money out of Afghanistan, and a lot of people who are working with NATO and foreigners are jobless. And at the same time, they've been threatened by Taliban, right? Like the recent family that we kind of met, it was a man who came to our office who was, a friend of one of our colleagues. And he said that he and his wife and his two children, right, like between 4 to 7 years old, they wanted to run away. He was working in Supreme, one of the forbidden companies working with the NATO, right? Forbidden, I'm telling because it was culturally in Afghanistan and religiously was forbidden to work on that company because it was all about the drinks, alcohol, and this kind of things. So they, after a lot of threat that they had, they decided to go to Turkey, as like all other refugees, and cross the sea, right, and go to Greece. But when they go, their boat is collapsed, and his wife with his two children, all of them died in front of him. And he was completely broken when I met him in Kabul. He came back with the bodies of his family to Kabul and buried them. And I remember that when last time I said to you that when the international troops leave Afghanistan, then a lot of problem will come because unfortunately international troops didn't follow a really, really good and united strategy altogether to improve Afghanistan. And when they left really soon with no strategy, right? It's true that like the U.S. Government has kind of made a law that whoever helped the U.S. Army in Afghanistan, they could go by the name of SIV, Special Immigration Visa, to U.S. and live there. But imagine that what happened with the other nations, other NATO nations who hired a lot of people.
Yeah, and this is the old but still very relevant. If you worked for foreign military or foreign period, didn't have to be military, that you would be marked, persecuted by different groups. We've mentioned some of them here, Taliban being the big name, but there are other groups. So those people are in danger. And as you say, the U.S. had a policy, if we're going to say what's a good policy, what's a pretty good policy in terms of people being able to carry on after they leave, go, immigrate. But I never thought about that, the amount of countries that didn't have such a policy. And then what happens to those people, not only unemployed, that's one problem, but the safety in terms of now under threat.
Yeah, well, I know that some other countries like France followed the same, but in really, really few percentage of the number, well, from all friends of I had who are working with the French troops, I know only one brother of my friend who left for that, and he could get asylum and live in France. But to be honest, I didn't see any other, same policy with the other, nationality of the Europe, especially. And for now, just imagine that it's 2 or 3 years that those who are working with NATO and the European country, they are living in miserable time in Afghanistan. They are most of them are educated, right? And most of them are one of the smart part of Afghan society, but they have to hide themselves. They have to not working in the society, to not being killed by Taliban or other insurgent groups.
Can you even live like this? It sounds like unlivable.
It is unlivable, It's too difficult. I know some of them. It's too difficult. media is under a lot of pressure right now, because the time that the U.S. The international troops were in Afghanistan, the freedom of speech had a really, really good support from them, right? Money wise and like power support, right? So it means that if anything happens, then the international nations and troops were putting pressure on government to solve that, and then it was solved really easy. But now, no. Now a lot of journalists will have problem, not only with the government, not only with the Taliban, with the warlords who were, a kind of U.S. Army alliance in Afghanistan, right?
After 2001.
Yeah. And now they have a lot of problem with these guys. I'm sure that if somebody just follow the news these days after the Afghanistan New Year, it was a kind of like a clash between two warlords. One of them is first vice president, and one of them is the governor of Balkh province, which is the one of the main city for Nowruz celebration. So and they had problem together only over cutting or destroying a poster of the vice president, right? And a lot of supporters of these two warlords, with no thinking even, right? Run to the streets and then had a lot of violence and destroyed a lot of relationships, and one or two people even been killed in one of the cities. So in all these cases, right, information that I gave last time, right, is coming true.
Slightly different direction. I'm thinking here of time, which I'm fascinated how time passes, and here we are, and getting older.
Yeah.
And hey, it's there are good things about that.
Yeah.
But I never forget, and I've probably said it on too many podcasts, so I apologize to anyone. But some of the things I'll still remember always about Afghanistan were just simple moments: a morning, going down the street. Maybe to get some pomegranates or something, but seeing people, kids. Yeah. And I remember on our street where the Kabul Inn was, it must have been a girls' school, because I always saw only little girls with this, uniform, nice uniform, clean, and there was a lot of laughter, there was a lot of excitement. I think even running across the street and cars would like honk at them, like be careful. Right. And I remember thinking then, it had already been a few years, it was 2010. These girls are going to school in a different time, interesting time. Now, fast forward, it's been 6 years since that time. These girls are now teenagers. Right. I'm really curious, and I'm even a little bit hopeful. I don't know if I'm naive, but this generation since 2000, let's go 2006, 10 years later, they're teenagers. Some were teenagers then, now they're adults. How different are they? Do you get to talk to, or teenagers or young adults? Mm-hmm. I'm so curious, because they've grown up in a different time, not the best time. Mm-hmm. There's plenty to be traumatized still about, but it's not like war. It's something else. Yeah. Maybe it is too much like war, unfortunately. But what do you notice when you interact with them? And curious.
Yeah, just imagine that one of the big problem and betraying of Karzai's government for Afghanistan and for students was that he didn't change the old and corrupt system of the education.
How old are we talking? That's from...
Yeah, that education system that we have is from like king time, from long time ago. But when you have another system in the country, like democracy, right? So you have to educate students from the any age. What is democracy? What does it mean? And what is election? What is blah blah blah
You're
blah
a
blah
part
blah?
as an
Yeah,
individual,
and
right?
you are part. And because a lot of human rights organization came to Afghanistan, right? And we as a one part journalist, one part activist, civil society activist, we try to, make the government understand that they have to change the system of the education. Nobody even listened to us.
Why are they
And
scared? Or?
well, for sure that it was a lot of other things. If you ask this question from Karzai, well, Karzai will say that, the education wasn't my priority. My priority was peace. But if you see that for any country, for any society, right, education is really, really important because it's the future of the country, right? But Karzai's education minister was always doing something else, not doing anything for the education, right? So, and that was the reason that a lot of funders, the big funders for education, like Japan, they were hopeless to, spend money and no change, right? So it should be a lot of change. It should be some lessons in school books to let them know that there is no difference between girls and boys. There is no difference between father and mother, right? They can both work. They can both, go to school or whatever, right? But these things never happen, right? So if you see these, children that you saw, right? I was really hopeful too, but the percentage of those, girls and boys that they change their mind in their school is so less, because whatever was telling in the, school books is saying that father give me food, gives me food,
Very old,
right? Yeah, very old. Mother was cleaning the house.
And that's it, right?
That's it. So this is from long time ago, from like probably decades that we had this, right?
King-wise, it should be what?
Yeah,
40s?
and then this is the result that we have today. That last year, right? In the one day before Nowruz, people, a mob of men killed a woman in one of the mosques, right? Because they thought she said something against Quran or did something against Quran. They killed her. They, pushed her in the street. They drew a car on her body, right? They stoning her, right? They jumped on her body. Some of the young teenager even touched her, some part of her body, and then in the end, they burned her body. And then when the body was completely burned, like completely black, right? They put that body on beside a wall and start beating that remains of that body with wood, with bottom, and with the stone.
And it's all
So,
recorded, by the way.
yeah,
It's all
yeah.
photos, videos, people.
All,
yeah,
because all those people who were doing this, they were recording with their mobile. So this is the question, that why nothing after 14 years, right? Putting a lot of, taxpayers' money from the US, from the Canada, from Europe, right? Nothing changed. Why? Because, I'm sorry to say that, but because a stupid person like Karzai was on the power. And that guy was brought to Afghan people by Westerner countries,
yeah.
right? And that guy was against the Westerners in the end.
So it's always the problem, right? I don't know, of course, what was going on in those conversations with education ministers and presidents, but of course, people are always going to say, someone will say, "But no, this is our tradition. Don't come to us with what our education should look like. We know."
Well, to be honest, if we were living inside the cages, right? and inside the stones and go to the stone age, right? That was true. Yeah, right. But when somebody comes as an educated people, right, and they have that position because they're educated, how they can say that, right? They were not, brave enough to change this culture. I'm not telling that all part of the Afghan culture is wrong, but a lot of part of Afghan culture is wrong, right? The look and view of Afghan cultures on women is wrong. The view on and judgment of young people in Afghan society is wrong, right? And a lot of other things like tribal mind and all of this. Well, if you say that, yeah, this is our culture, that Pashtuns are against an enemy of Hazara, or Hazara is enemy of Tajiks, or blah blah blah. So that's true. That's our culture, right? But if we want to finish this, tragedy, right?
Yeah.
So we have to change the culture, right?
Otherwise you keep repeating.
Yes.
Keep repeating everything.
But what happened in the really, sensitive, an important and golden time of Afghanistan, which a lot of money was coming to Afghanistan, and a lot of, foreign country was in Afghanistan, the education minister, Mr. Wardak, was trying to steal money, was trying to not working, and he was always in another job, not in the ministry. And that's why that after when President Karzai left the power, it was a lot of reports that it was thousands of schools and teachers and students that the international community was paying for them were not even existed, And when journalists were to look for those kind of schools, nobody knew about it. But where are those money?
Let's shift a little bit to a film, the film, frame by frame. I didn't know. I would have been telling people for months ago in advance. I know there was even a Kickstarter to fund it. You're one of the main protagonists in Frame by Frame, a film about photojournalism, which, again, anyone who's listened to this program, we've heard probably from a few photojournalists from Afghanistan over the years. You mentioned, your, I don't know, did you call them your generation or your people who grew up with you, grew up in professional terms, who a lot of which I got to meet, which was always a lot of fun. How did this happen? And then we can talk a little bit about the film, of course.
Yeah, well, actually, this film was the, idea of Alexandria Bombach from US and her colleague Mo Scarpelli. So they came to Afghanistan in 2011, right? Before that, I won, award, Pulitzer Award. So, and they start that actually 2012 probably, and but it was before my award. So they start that, and they had a really brilliant idea because nobody else would do this. And the idea was nice and really brilliant and talented because they covered and followed a lot of miserable story of the Afghan society through our eyes, through four photojournalists. And that came as one of the powerful documentary of last year, I think I'm not sure because I was not in all of this news. I think this documentary won like probably more than 40 awards, right? And we could go to Canada to show this in the dog festival, hot dog festival, and then a lot of other festivals inside the USA.
It's interesting how a film and going with the film can connect you to all kinds of other issues in the world. I noticed, and I know you noticed, but the day you were flying here was also the day of the Brussels terror attacks.
Yeah.
And I mean, there it is again, right? It's not... Obviously, we all know that there's nowhere in this world that you can go, really. I mean, where these acts of mass violence can't touch you.
Right. Yeah.
And I think there might have been a time where people thought the opposite. They thought, I will go somewhere safe. It'll be this corner of the world.
Right.
Nobody's angry there.
Right.
But indeed, like as you go places in the world, whether it's violence or protest, these themes, which you have at home also, the whole world is experiencing.
Yeah, well, I travel to European country a lot, and I always enjoyed, and it was like a holidays for me. And I meet a lot of, lovely friends like you and other other friends that I really wanted to meet all the time.
Yeah.
But this time, this year, like 3 days ago, when I kind of moved from Kabul to Istanbul and then from Istanbul to Amsterdam, for the first time in Istanbul, when I just checked the news about Brussels, I was scared to come to Amsterdam and come to Europe, right? And that's really, really bad feeling because I thought that there is one place safe in the world, like European country, that I can go for holiday, right? And I can meet my friends and I have fun. But when I came, I had this fear, Well, that's true that we have a lot of, insecurity in Afghanistan, right? But I know how to function there, right? But when I came to Amsterdam airport, first of all, I saw a lot of police more than before. Yeah. And then second, I was kind of scared that if we have to finish really first checking our passport and then go and then run to somewhere else because probably this, airport being under attack again, like Brussels, right? Yeah. And this feeling is mixed of sadness, is mixed of angriness, right? And is mixed of like a lot of other curiosity that why this happened. Right, and I know. Well, there is no time to explain all of this, but for sure that has one. Really small. Answer for this. If all the world, right, this is my big wish, which probably never happens, right? If all the world, especially the Western countries, would fight honestly against terrorism in Afghanistan, in Syria, and in Iraq, this would never happen, that the war and the violence come to your next door, right? So you can't imagine, it's really difficult to say my feeling that how much I'm sad and how much I'm kind of angry that this happened in Brussels or in France. Which I have a lot of, friends there, right? Yeah. One of my best holidays were in France, in Paris, and and in exactly in that attack that it happened in the theater, right, in Paris. A friend of mine from Afghanistan who went to Europe to be safe, right, because of a lot of problem that she had, was only 5 minutes away from that explosion. And she came out of that theater because somebody called her, right? And they went, and then that happened in that theater, right? So it's not I can't see that anywhere is safe right now, unfortunately. When I was coming to Amsterdam, when I checked my email, my Facebooks in Istanbul, a lot of friends of mine were telling me from Kabul that Massoud, be careful. It's really dangerous. Yeah. It was two, world war that we passed, right? The first and the second. The second was in Europe, right? The first also was in Europe, right?
Right. They get the title
Yeah. Yeah. And the second was something like 5 to 6 years, right? And then finished with that, a lot of tragedy and a lot of people were killed. But the third world war is exactly going on right now. Is against, is between free world and between the extremists, any kind of extremists, right? And it's time, that all this power that won the Second World, right, World War, they should get together again and honestly, fight against it, right? But we clearly see what happened in Syria. U.S. and Westerners were defeating some terrorist groups against the, legal government. Well, if they are dictator, but they are still legal, right? People of Syria should, solve it, right? I don't like Assad. I don't. I hate all the dictators in the world, right? But that was a legal government, right? If you fight against the Assad because he's a dictator, why you don't fight against the Saudi family who they are also dictator in, because they sell you their oil to you, but Syria doesn't, right? And now we see that like a big power like Russia comes do their own operation, and then Britain, Canada, US, France, Germany, blah blah blah, they're also doing their operation in Syria, and then 70% of the all big cities are destroyed, right? And if refugees kind of like attack into the Europe from Afghanistan, right, and Iraq and Syria, you cannot say no to them because you're part of the world, you're part of this body, and you are also responsible for it. So that's the mind of this world now should be changed. I don't know, there is a lot of kind of fascism in the world. One of the fascism is that you think that you're better than the other people, right? In many kind of things, in art, in science, in culture, in whatever, right? And then you close your eyes and you go inside yourself, right? And you think that whatever you have is the best, right? And you don't think that, okay, if I'm eating here a lot of food, right, why I should share it with Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan? If I make a lot of buildings in Den Haag right now, right, why I should go and build a school in, for example, in Bamiyan in Afghanistan? Why should I should do it? I work here. I work hard. I 5 days a week, really hard, blah blah blah. But why should I do that, right?
Which isn't a terrible question.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
But
think about the next generation, right? Think about it, right? Do not do that mistake that we did, right? We did that mistake, and our country is on the war for 270 years. It's not because of Russia came, blah blah blah. No, before that also we had a civil war all the time, right? So if you want to, keep this country exactly the same in future, well, this third world war that is going on between the free world and terrorism show everyone that having the nuclear weapon and a lot of weapon, it doesn't change anything.
that's true.
We see that every time that one new elected of the big powers president like Germany, France, US, Canada, when they're elected, they go to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and then they just say that like this, and this,
It's now
this, and
tradition,
this,
of
right? Is it tradition, right? But if you wanna, finish the terrorism and this feeling for those people that the Westerners are playing double game, right? So start finishing this game.
Yeah.
If you don't, go against the dictator of Syria, when you don't go against the dictator of Saudi,
Consistency.
right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So.
When I met you, you were the guy who we would go to dinner and we knew that the phone might ring and you might leave. And that's just how it is. Our man might leave because there's going to be something. And then sometimes you would come back and you'd go, it was just a controlled explosion. I don't know how many times that happened. This was your work. You were an up and coming. You're still up and coming. Don't worry about that part. But you were the guy who would get up and jump. And then I can't say so much about the photos that you would take. You would show us sometimes. But I'm wondering, how has your work changed? Not just that part about getting up and running all the time, but also what you're trying to do.
Well, actually, my main kind of work and professions is to cover clash and war and violence and something around this. Unfortunately, yeah. But I'm good at that, unfortunately or fortunately. Well, and I can just give more information to audience about this. Well, it's a big change in Afghanistan because the Western media and all world media, international media, is not, putting a lot of attention in Afghanistan right now. And it's not important for them anymore. So what we do, if something big attack happened, right, in Kabul, I will go to cover it any time of the, day, right? But if the something small happens, right? Like before, that small things was also news for the world, but now it's not.
Has to be big.
Yeah, has to be big. Like if some, civil society, demonstration happens about the women rights or whatever, like with 50 people, we don't care. Unfortunately,
So the standards have changed.
yeah. And we said, okay, if we go, then why we should go? Because nobody will take care of it. Then why we should cover it? But I remember that the first movement of the teenager girls who were they were probably 15 people, 15 girls, that they made a demonstration. And it was 100 journalists was covering it.
More journalists than protesters.
All the time. And then the police priority was just, kind of protecting the journalists, not those who had the. But now it's not like that. So now the world doesn't have any attention on Afghanistan. And if something big happened, really big, like killed like 50 or 70 people, right, in Kabul, probably we go and cover it. But even if that happened in the some really part of rural area of Afghanistan and Pakistan border, even we don't, go for it because it's not possible to go.
Yeah.
There is no security for that, and nobody is, will pay attention on it, right? So this is the way that we are doing right now. But at the same time also, a lot of other stories are off now. We had a lot of, stories about arts, girls, women development, and youth, new generation, some private, education centers, but all of them are gone now. All of them are
The
gone.
centers themselves or the
Yes,
reports?
everything are gone. You know, we had a American school. We had a American institution. That American school was one of the best for the, children to study and then go on and grow up. But they're all are gone. They're all closed because of the attacks, right? And we had a lot of other, institution and schools, international schools, who kind of like try to build another generation with a lot of knowledge, right? But they're gone too because it's like the attacks didn't let anyone to think about anything, right? So this is the situation right now, and even you see that a lot of good restaurants were under attack in Kabul. The places that we
loved.
had, we had a lot of, kind of memory. One of the places that was under attack, and I cried and I lost some friends, was IFA, French Culture Center in Istiqlal High School. When that was under attack, I only was kind of away from that attack only 3 minutes. I was going to that program, right? And then that attack happened, and a lot of friends of mine were there, and I cried. I didn't know who died, he didn't, right? And I had for sure I had a lot of memories in my life, in my like young time, that I kind of like met a lot of people, a lot of great people, a lot of girls, a lot of boys in IFA, right? And then it was closed for 1.5 years, 1.5 years. And that was the only place that we were counting as having entertainment, going to concert, going to different cultures, meeting different people, having fun, laugh, and trying to talk different, and make different generation accept each other, right? Like one of the good things that it was going on in IFA was that we were meeting each other and we never ask who we are,
Right.
which tribe we are, right? And everybody was there, and we didn't know who's Tajik, who's Pashtun, or blah 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 blah. But now, even now, it's closed.
Yeah. And
So
it may not come back. I mean, that's,
I don't know, actually. I hope that they do.
and
But if you ask me which assignment is interested me, the development of the new generation, especially those girls who are fighting for their rights, it's something that I always want to follow, right? So in this case, I follow like some few fashion show in the year. In this case, I follow some few girls who like are artists, graffiti. They're doing graffiti in some part of the city. And this is what I really enjoy to follow, right? If I go from one morning, I can be with this kind of assignment till probably end of the night, right? And I really enjoy it. I don't see that any time is going, actually. But as I told you, because of the security and because of the, the society is so hopeless, this kind of, report and this kind of image is so less now. Most of those, girls who were doing a lot of project by the help of the international, fund, they're gone. They're gone. To be honest, they're gone. And that is my problem actually. Because I'm so busy in my, country, doing a lot of, thing in my life, studying, job, friends, family, and everything. So sometimes I kind of get caught with those, youth, because they're left, they're living some other countries, and when they start chatting with me in Facebook, right? I don't have time to answer them.
Yeah.
And this means that I lose some of my friends, and that's really, really bad feeling, really bad feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Massoud, it's a great pleasure to have you sitting right in front of me. It's as it should be.
Yeah.
I hope we can do it again soon. And I appreciate it. I know when a microphone is present, everything's always a little more complicated, but you make me feel like we're still sitting in your living room and you're beating me at chess, which you do so easily. It's unbelievable. But thanks for sitting down with me, and let's talk again in the future.
Yeah. Thank you very much also for this opportunity that I can talk to your audience again. I'm sure that I will do it again too. I will come probably every year.
And eventually I will make it back. There must be some way they'll let me in.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that whatever I said to your audience, they don't forget it. And as I put all of my life and my energy to change this world, they do it the same. It doesn't matter what they are doing, It doesn't matter what job they have. They can do it. I'm sure that they can do it. And I hope that they use this big opportunity in the world. We have social media, which put all the world together.
Yeah.
They go for it, and they try to make change in the mind of other people, or they change their mind from the other people, And good luck to you and everybody.
Thanks. That was Massoud Hossaini speaking to me at the Movies That Matter Film Festival, which took place in March in The Hague. And you can find the film, just Google Frame by Frame the Film, or go to framebyframethefilm.com. Look for upcoming screenings, and surely soon you'll be able to get the film. And there you can see Massoud's work and Farzana, his wife's work. I care for them both very much and love hearing from them. I hope you enjoyed. And that does it for today's program. What I'll do here at the end, just after the closing credits here, I'll play an excerpt from our first conversation, which I believe was back in 2010 from a rooftop in Kabul. It's just a little excerpt that was one of our maybe second or third meetings ever. And I'm very proud to call him my friend and look forward to having him back on this program. The website for all you who just found this audio somewhere is realitiespodcast.com. And you may have noticed that I launched the Reality Checks mini programs. I may be launching a few smaller features within this feed. So if you're subscribed, you won't miss anything, and maybe you'll even enjoy some things along the way. Today's program included music by Misha Mishenko and Boom Boom Beckett, and of course, Neighbor at the top of the program. You can find all of them, and I recommend that you do, by just searching the web and getting your hands on their music. Thanks so much to everyone who helped make this happen, of course, especially Massoud Hossaini. Until next time, I'm Mark Fonseca Rendeiro. See you. Give us the correct one sentence description.
Yeah, Kabul, first of all, so crowded, a lot of people in the streets the way that I come, and it's black and white in color, because you won't see a lot of color anyway. Just some few places, if you go, you will see people different, but the rest all have
Brevity.
one color.
Brevity is a virtue.
That was good. That was briefer than some.
Briefer than some.
And
I'm verbose.
I don't have a one. I was so busy asking the question. I don't have a one sentence. It's like, oh yeah. Well, you all podcast listeners will recall when we were podcasting from Cambodia. So it's like, for me, it's like Phnom Penh with weapons and something else added to it. But it reminds me a lot of Phnom Penh for some reason. So you all live here, or long term, or medium term, or life, and a lot of people are now asking, of course, what is going on? Isn't it dangerous? That's a common question, and I always try to be cool and go, well, because if you say no, then you're not cool, and if you say yes, well, that's scary for people, so you be cool.
Yeah, we should say the truth, actually.
What's the truth?
It is sometimes. Especially we are going to parliamentary election, and it will be more violence, especially after Ramadan and Eid days.
But you go around and you're not scared all the time, are you?
I'm local, so I know how to move around the city. I never use one way anyway. I mean, even myself as a local, when I go home, always I am changing my way to go to home, actually.
What scares you in your mind? What scares you most as you go? Is it the traffic?
Traffic.
The traffic.
Also right now in the iftar time it will be, but normally in a place that I'm living, it is a lot of kidnapping story during the night. So it was the last one was a son of a minister. He was kidnapped, and nobody knows what happened to him, even right now. So I have to also take care, because I have a car and I have to carry my cameras, and they're expensive for sure. Some will do that.
Once.
Huh?
You've already been robbed once.
Yeah.
When was the last kidnapping?
3 weeks ago. This minister, the one that everybody knows, but also a lot of kidnapping will happen that nobody knows, just for money or something.
Baghdad Brian, you haven't been on the podcast in a while. You've spent a good amount of time in Baghdad once upon a time. How does it compare?
I've spent more time in Kabul now, actually, than Baghdad. But, I think that Kabul is like a more scenic Baghdad, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like Baghdad to me in 2005. You didn't go outside in the evening in Iraq, but I think it's okay. For me, I don't think it's that bad in Kabul right now. Some areas you wouldn't go, right? But Taimani, which is where I'm spending most of my time.
And we had explosion there a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but what I said is, look, we had a bombing, but who died, There was 2 people who were related to the target.
Yeah.
No civilians were killed.
Yeah.
1 injury. It's not so bad. But I'm really worried about
really lower your
outside
expectations.
But compared to 2003 and 4, I can say you that even we are scared. The locals right now are scared to move around during the night. 2003 and 4 was the best time. Everybody could move everywhere. The foreigners even could move without having car, without having translator. Nobody, disturbed them. But now there is a lot of things going on. Like it's from 1 year ago that all polices just check all foreigners' passports and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the fact, or I'm relieved at the fact that even though you see a lot of police on the road and what look like roadblocks, right now they're not stopping that many people. I haven't been asked ever by a police officer. Maybe I will, but I consider it kind of a nice thing that for whatever reason right now they're a little more relaxed.
Yeah, because it's Ramadan, so people move during the night in Ramadan, so police doesn't want to disturb them a lot. And also, we don't have a lot of, we didn't have in this last month, we didn't have a lot of attacks, so they are kind of okay now. But it will be changed. Yeah.
You're sure?
After the Eid. In the Eid days, which is like in 1 week, most of the population from Kabul will leave to villages, mostly to north. So it will be good for 3 days for Kabul to stay with. And after that, again, people will come back to their work. And also because Ramadan is finished, I'm sure the activities from Taliban because of parliamentary election will happen also.